What's up guys, Brad here from Piney Grove. But today we're not at Piney Grove. I drove there this morning and I loaded up all this equipment and drove 2 hours here to our 1,200 acre recreational property a couple hours south. And as I was driving, I was thinking that this is the last time, or maybe the last time, that I trailer this Kubota tractor out here. Deb and I just entered a partnership with a tractor company, and they're gonna provide us a tractor and all the implements we need to do everything out at Piney Grove and anything that we wanna do out here. So this could be the last time this tractor here ever gets trailered out to this property. And for now, we're gonna keep it, but as we transition to that new tractor, and it's a new color tractor, we can't reveal the brand of it yet, but when it comes on to Piney Grove, we're gonna be doing a lot of content about that tractor and that company. But let's get this thing unchained and get it off the trailer and get to work here. What we'll be doing today is putting in 2 acres of food plots. Well, I have 2 acres of food plots to put in, and I'm getting a late start on the day. Probably gonna get one done, and with it getting dark early with daylight savings time, we'll come back out tomorrow and finish the job. One of the first things I do when I arrive at my destination when I'm trailering is go around and just check everything out, make sure the trailer bearings aren't too hot, you know, put my hand on each bearing and just kind of look things over, make sure I didn't lose anything in transit or there's nothing to worry about, you know, trailering back. And when I looked up under here on this tire, there was some bear poop. And how do I know it's bear poop? Because it's yellow. And here in Florida, you're allowed to feed deer corn, but bear love corn, and we have a lot of bears out here. We probably have 6 or 8 on this 1,200 acre property that pass through it. And the people around us that are hunters are feeding corn, and the bears are going on that property and eating the corn and coming over here and pooping, and I'm driving through it. That's one thing you might have learned today in this video, that when a bear eats corn, he has yellow poop. For those of you that have been with us for a while, you know that 3 months ago, I had shoulder surgery. So my whole right shoulder has been completely replaced. That whole joint is metal now. And I went to see the surgeon this week at the 3-month mark and asked what my restrictions are, because I've been on a probably no more than 10-pound weight restriction lifting with my right arm. And I told him my PT's been going fine, I'm feeling great. And he basically told me, live your life. He goes, that's why I like doing these type of surgeries, is because we take people from a point of pain and where they can't really move their arm or their leg or whatever, and get them back to where they were before so they can start living their life. So that's why you see me lifting stuff and hauling stuff and kind of going back to where I was before, because I got the clearance. And if any of you out there were wondering if you should do the surgery, what the recovery time is, I've got nothing but positive things to say about it. It's been 3 months. Yeah, there was a little bit of pain in the beginning, but the physical therapy has gone well. And like I said earlier, I'm basically back to where I was before. And now I just have to build up those muscles that have atrophied over the last 3 months. I can't believe that I used to actually put this in the back of my pickup to move it around and drive it up with those ramps and then stack everything in the truck. And then last year, I drove it onto the trailer this way, and then I picked it up and put it sideways. And then I remembered I had ramps in the garage, so work harder. No, work smarter, not harder. I've been working harder. So are you one of those people that gets things done quicker than you thought? Or do you take longer than you think? If you were to ask Miss Piney Grove, my wife, she would say I am a chronic underestimator. That I say that I can do things in a much shorter amount of time than I actually do them. And she's probably right. I feel like when I make an estimate of something, like to get this food plot done, I figure this is the one I could get done. It might be hard for me to get that done, but in my mind, I'm thinking, spread out some seed, till it in, cultipack it in, and call it a day. But there's so many steps in between. Like I've had the camera off for a few minutes, had to fuel the ATV, I had to put the spreader on, I had to unload the seed, and now as I pour the seed in the hopper, because I have some oat seed, which tends to bind up the spreader, I gotta make sure that's mixed thoroughly. And I just don't account for those things. I only account for the tractor time. I only count the minutes that it takes to do the fun stuff and don't count the minutes of the stuff that's not so fun. We'll be using 3 different seeds today. We're gonna be using triticale. Triticale is a blend of rye and wheat, and it was developed a long time ago. We've never used it, but we've heard it's good for deer pots. So we're gonna try it this year. And then we got our old standby here, which is rye, cereal rye, and deer love oats. And because it's warm here in Florida in the winter, we don't get a kill on the oats. By a kill, I mean if you're in a cold climate, if it gets, I don't know what the temperature is, but like 20 or something, or for an extended period of time, that will actually kill off oats. A lot of times in the past, I would include clover and chicory to feed in the spring, but this year I didn't buy the seed, so we're just gonna be putting out grains. And as I'm talking to the camera and moving these sacks around, I'm thinking this is why stuff takes me so long. We try to do a double rate out here. So if that's an acre, we want to do, instead of 75 pounds per acre, we want to do about 150 pounds per acre. And I got 200 pounds of seed here, so I'll have a nice thick stand. And that's what it looks like. You can see the oats are really big and got a long hull on them. And rye here has small hulls. So I got to mix that together because these will bind up in the spreader. And this here is triticale. You can see it almost looks like wheat, kind of golden like wheat. Turn on my plate to make sure that it spins. And then with that spinning, I'll just use this lever to open up this gate down here. And there's 2 holes down in the bottom. It'll open that up. That grain will hit this spreader and sling out about 5 feet or so. I think we're ready to spread. The hopper's full, and you can see across here, we didn't pre-till. This is just the way it was after I got brush hog and sprayed. Everything's dead and crunchy. I'm just gonna spread this seed right on top, pretty thick, and then till it in and be done. The plate running, and then open the gate. So my width of my spreader is out to there. So I'm overlapping just a little bit, and I'm not going real fast because I want to put lots of seed out. I'd say my hopper's about half empty. Down and back right there, 2 passes, and my hopper's about half full. And that's about right. I want to put it out pretty heavy, so I know that I can go down and back 2 times. This will probably be empty, and that should be a good rate. I grew up on a farm, and I've been hunting since I was 8 years old, and I literally mean hunting as far as my dad gave me a shotgun and said, go duck hunting when I was 8. And I love it. I love to hunt. I love to bird hunt. Really got into deer hunting about 14, 15 years ago here in Florida. Did a little of it back on the farm in Virginia. But as I get older, and I'm in my mid-50s now, I'm starting to feel like I've heard other old hunters feel, which is we want to shoot big bucks. We want to get deer meat. But as you get older, it's less and less about that and more about the experience. And today is a prime example. I probably could hunt on this property, throw a little bit of corn out here and get my 3 deer that I have tags for, no problem. But then I wouldn't be able to use my ATV and use my tractor and plant and work the land and watch the deer come in and eat things that I grew for them. And then the deer that we don't harvest then get the benefit of all that food that we planted for them. And that gives them nourishment for their bodies and to make more fawns and the bucks to have bigger antlers. And that's just more important to me every year. That's the way I feel, that's more important to me than actually sitting in that deer stand over there and pulling the trigger on my rifle. And I'm not sad about it. I enjoy it, and I'm embracing the fact as I go through that change of life. So if you're a hunter or anybody that's an outdoor enthusiast, do you notice that the way you do things in the outdoors is different as you get older? Because I'm certainly experiencing that. I could bring a cyclone spreader out here and then spread the seed with the tractor, and we've done that before, and then switch to the tiller, but that takes time. And with an ATV spreader, you can be real accurate. Like you can get real close to the woods line and not throw too much seed into the woods. A tractor spreader, one of those cyclone spreaders, is a little bit less efficient and a little bit less accurate. And like I said a few minutes ago, I'm just enjoying the process, and it's just fun to drive this ATV around. It's fun to drive a tractor too, but I'm just enjoying this whole day. Because I have so much seed, I don't have to worry about, you know, being conservative with it. So I'm probably overlapping way too much. But I don't care. I want this nice and thick and green. That's what I've got left of my second fill up. Way less than half in there. And I've done from here all the way across. The little bit that I have left on the trailer should be enough to go from the four-wheeler over to the edge. I didn't want to go any farther than that pine tree down there. And I know they're all pine trees at the end. You're like, which one? But there's one that sticks out a little. I wanted that to be well seeded. One thing I didn't mention about triticale is the seeding rate is a lot higher than the rye and the wheat and oats. So triticale goes out at like 80 or 90 pounds per acre, whereas rye goes out at like one bag, 50 pounds per acre or something like that. I'll throw up on the screen what it actually is, but I know triticale goes out at a higher rate. That took forever to empty. I don't know if the oats got bound up or what, but I've got a thick covering of seed out here. All 200 pounds are out here, so it's time to jump on the Kubota and till it in. But as I was driving around here, I was thinking about, as a content creator, like all the people that I've met through doing YouTube videos. And if you're a watcher of the channel, you know that daily I talk to Brock over at Rock Hill Farms and Lucas over at Peaks Peak Hobby Homestead. But also I was recently at the Equipment Expo in Louisville, Kentucky, and I met Joe the farmer, Stony Ridge farmer, Cap from Capper Outdoors. And it's just so cool how content creation, we're in competition with each other, but we all want each other to do well and get good views and make good videos and make good content. But we're like-minded when it comes to how we like to be outside working with our equipment. Before I jump on the Kubota, I'm gonna run down to my other plot about a mile away, not quite a mile away, and get the cultipacker and drag that back with the ATV. Make sure I got a pin. I always keep my cultipacker pin tied to my ATV, and I kind of forgot about it. You know, after driving 2 hours, never know when you might lose something like that. If you don't know what a cultipacker is, that's a cultipacker. We'll explain what it does. Since we've been using it, it's definitely increased our germination rate. It just takes that fluffy seed bed and compacts it, and you just get more of the seed that you plant that actually come up. I knew that this needed some work. Last year when I was out here with my friend Rob, he had a brand new grease gun. I went to grease this for him. He was food plotting, and I broke this grease fitting off. I guess they also call them zerts. Grease zerts? What do you call them? Leave a comment down below. But everyone's been using this cultipacker this year. Everyone else has planted but me. I'm late. And I've been asking them, are they keeping this greased? And they go, yeah, they've been taking the good grease fitting from the other side and putting it over here and greasing it. Well, I've got an assortment of grease fittings here, so there's a chance that I have the right size. But one of my other friends said he had an assortment and none of his would fit. So let's see, what are the chances that I have one that fits? This one looks like it might fit. If you stay still, the mosquitoes will find you and tell all their friends. That's what I've got right there. It actually looks like the same threads, but sometimes they're metric and sometimes they're SAE and they look the same, but they're not. I got that one to thread in pretty far by hand, so I think that one will work. It seems to be going in without a lot of effort, so we're gonna call that a win. Yeah, that went in no problem. All right, good. It's got plenty of grease in it now, but we don't want to burn that out. The way we built this cultipacker is we bought one of those double farm cultipackers, actually had wooden bearings on the end, and we bought pillow block bearings and a bunch of steel and had a friend weld it up for us. And we made this big one, and then we also have a smaller one for ATV. This one's 8 foot. We have a 4 or 5 footer. These old cultipackers are getting harder to come by, and these packing wheels, you can buy new packing wheels, but these old ones are heavier, made out of cast iron, and just do a better job than the new ones. All right, I got it back together. Time to till this field. If you weren't with us last year when I helped Rob put in his food plot, everything broke that day for him. It's really a great video. It's a funny video. I'll link it down below. All of the guys have already planted theirs, and for different reasons. Everyone's got family and different, you know, demands on their life. But I think a lot of it is they don't want me to record them like I have out here in years past. All right, let's do a little tilling. I'm gonna start here with my first pass, make a few passes, and come back and explain what I'm doing. I've made a few passes and got this out where there's sun hitting the ground. That's kind of the bad thing about food plots, is when you plant them in an area where maybe the trees were low or there were no trees, as the trees grow up around the plot, they tend to shade it, especially from the south where the sun's shining. But behind me to the right is where I've tilled, and over here is where I haven't tilled. And the reason that it's able to till so well, number one, is I've got the right moisture content here. It's not too dry, it's not too wet. I would say you can till when it's really, really dry, but it's really, really hard to till well if the ground's really wet. As we get more over on that side, it's a little more clumpy because it's wetter and has more clay and I guess less sand. You also want to make sure you don't have too much thatch here on the top. If there's too much of it, it'll bind up your tiller, and that's a problem. And a couple more things about tillers. Don't go too fast with them, especially if there's a lot of thatch and stuff to chew up. Let the tiller chew it, and don't stop in the middle of your row. Like if you get a good speed going and it's a good speed to chop everything up and it's leaving a nice seed bed, try and maintain that speed, because if you don't, it'll clump up behind the tiller, and when you come back next year to mow, you'll have like moguls, like ski moguls. And I actually had some of them over there and I didn't know why, and I guess it's because those pine roots stick out, and when the tiller hits them, it kind of pops over top of them. So the way I got rid of those moguls was I went back over that a couple times. And sometimes you have to do that where it's clumpy too. A lot of this soil dirt over here is a little clumpy because it's wetter and it has a lot of this grass that's dead here that I sprayed. It's the root balls and everything are still intact. They're dead, but when the tiller hits them, it kind of kicks them up as a whole root ball. And that makes for a less even seed bed. So compared to where we started this segment, and that's a stump right there, that's something you got to deal with when you're doing food plots. But this is less smooth, or it's lumpier than over where we started because it was sandier over there and it just kind of feathered out better. But there's no doubt a tiller does a much better job than a disc harrow for a food plot. You just got to keep some of those things in mind. I want to show you a prime example of what I was talking about with those root balls. You see this strip right here? It looks like it's not tilled that well. All these root balls are ripped up. You can see it looks like they're planted, but they're not. You can see they're still, they're cut up a little bit with the rototiller. But because the roots are holding this together, it doesn't feather out. All this stays together with these roots, and these roots are all dead. So what I'll do to clean that up is whenever I see that, I'll come back through and make another pass and chop that up. You don't need a tiller to have a successful food plot. For 10 years, we put in food plots with a disc harrow, and they grew just fine. The problem is that a disc harrow relies on speed, and with a tiller you can go slow, you can get right up to the edges, and in one pass you can leave behind you a perfectly prepared seed bed. And that saves you diesel fuel, wear and tear in your equipment, but most importantly time, because it seems like we're always pressed for time to get in our food plots. We are all tilled, even double tilled over there where there's a lot of thatch. Got it all nice and smooth. You can see the sun setting. There's very little sunlight on the plot. And what we're going to do now is take that cultipacker and just run over top of here. I think it's 8 foot wide. We might overlap a little bit, but what we want to do is take this light fluffy soil that has all that seed in it and just squish it together, just pack it. And what that does is it takes some of that moist soil, puts it against that seed, and increases your germination rate. And your germination rate is the percentage of seed that comes up. So if you put down 100 seeds and only 90 of them come up, that's a 90% germination rate. And you can get real close to 100% by using a cultipacker. If I didn't pack this, it would still come up and be green, but our germination rate would be lower. I don't know how much lower, but we used to do food plots without a cultipacker, and they were good and they were nice, but we noticed when we started using it that they were thicker and greener. All right guys, I got quite a bit more cultipacking to do, so I'm gonna leave you with that. If you wanna see updates to this plot and pictures, check us out on our Facebook page, Piney Grove, Homestead, and Mini Farm. We post regular updates there, more pictures and short videos as opposed to YouTube where we put the produced videos. But until next time, y'all take care out there, and remember, life's short, tractor hard. PG out.